Starting off with what I think is probably the funniest thing I've heard about French people, and that is how much they stink. To be honest, I don't really agree with this personally, but I do see where it could come from. European cities are very dense and you have to take public transport a lot, so you're kind of always in very close proximity with other people. And since most people go on vacation during the summer when it gets really hot, and Paris is probably the most visited city in the entire world, I can kind of see why people kind of single out the French as being stinky. I think one other reason why French people could smell is that European deodorants are much less effective than deodorants from elsewhere since they don't contain aluminum. Aluminum has a reputation for being toxic in Europe. I'm not sure how true that is, but my point is, most French people do put on deodorant every day, but despite their efforts, this could be why you still notice their body odor when it gets really hot. I haven't really noticed this a lot even after 3 years of living in Europe. Maybe I'm just lucky. But to me, the French don't necessarily stink more than everyone else. Everyone stinks the same, unless you're East Asian because we have a genetic mutation that eliminates underarm odor. Fun fact. Given that most French people don't actually have bad hygiene practices and they shower every day just like everyone else, I do find this stereotype a bit unfair because the main reasons why they could stink are completely out of their control. Moving on to two of the world's biggest stereotypes about French people, that they're rude and snobby. Yes, French people don't smile. Yes, they have a resting bitch face. And yes, it's actually quite normal to keep that resting bitch face on even when you're talking to other people. But this is all just part of how French people show politeness and respect. Because in France, politeness and respect isn't about being friendly or pleasant. It's about knowing how to keep the right distance. If I were to say something completely normal in America, like, "Hey, how are you?" to a stranger, in France, it would sound something like, "Salut, ça va?" And that would sound so out of place. Many people would actually consider that disrespectful because it feels like you're not taking them seriously. And even me, as an American, if someone I didn't know came up to me and said that to me, I'd still be taken aback because, why are you talking to me like you know me? So many social norms are different, and the French are actually quite strict with theirs, which I think is the main reason why so many people perceive the French to be rude, when in reality, they're just behaving according to what is considered normal in France. Another big reason why people think the French are rude is because of how comfortable they can get with giving unsolicited comments on everything. It could be the way you look, the way you're dressed, the way you speak, where you're from, basically the way you do anything. And there's two possibilities for this. The first one is that they're just being playful and teasing you, which is actually the case most of the time. And I actually prefer this over American culture where it's kind of socially forbidden to say anything that's not 100% positive about someone else. French people are thick-skinned in general, and it's just so nice to banter without always having to worry that you're potentially upsetting someone. Now, the second possibility is that they're actually judging you, but it's not necessarily in a mean way. Let me explain. In France, there tends to be only one right way to do everything. For example, you are not allowed to put chicken or barbecue sauce on a pizza, you're not supposed to drink coffee before finishing your main course, you don't use spoons to eat even rice or pasta. Every kid that gets educated in France gets forced to write only in cursive. You never wear gym clothes outside the gym. Like, these are very small things that an American probably wouldn't care about, but in France, these things can actually be a big deal. I remember the first time I went on a date in France, I wore a t-shirt and some nice looking sweatpants, which was never an issue in America, by the way. And my date straight up told me that if I was French, she would not have taken me seriously at all. So when a French person judges you for things like this, you might think that they're going out of their way to be mean or snobby towards you, but they're really just holding you to the same standards that they hold themselves to. Think of it as them trying to prevent you from making yourself look stupid in the future. One other reason why French people are so comfortable dishing out negative comments is their style of education. Teachers in France tend to be quite harsh and even demeaning in the way they teach. Students constantly get scrutinized for even the tiniest mistakes. And so what happens is that everyone who gets educated in France kind of gets that tendency programmed into them as well. This is why French people can feel so comfortable pointing out negative things. And if you're not used to it, you might think that they're trying to be an asshole. But the truth is, this is so normal in France that they might not even be aware of what they're doing. Something else that people like to say about the French is how much they like to complain. And I definitely don't agree with this because here's the thing. Every human from every culture complains. It's just that the French do it way more loudly and openly and bluntly, Whereas in places like the US or Asia, we tend to only do it in private with close friends or family. What I've noticed is that the concept of everything being good in moderation is really built into French culture. Like, for example, it's considered very normal to eat even unhealthy stuff like saucisson and chips right before dinner, which is what we call an apéro. But it's fine because they don't eat that much of it, and they'd only have an apéro once or twice a week maybe. So in that same vein, even stuff like complaining and venting is considered healthy to a certain extent. Complaining is usually something that's only done in the moment, like people don't dwell on it for too long. And in the grand scheme of things, I actually find the French to be some of the most content people that I've ever met. French people also have extreme boundaries when it comes to stuff that threatens either their livelihood or personal time, which I think is a very good thing. So in some cases where you might see a French person complaining at work, for example, it could just be them enforcing their boundaries, which I think we can all learn from. One other negative stereotype that French people get, especially in the US, is that they're stingy. And this mainly comes from how they don't tip, which I, as a former server in New York City, can definitely attest to. Similar to what I mentioned earlier, French people are very uncompromising with what they believe is right. One niche example that I always like to give is how much they feel entitled to certain rights. Like, most French people will stubbornly refuse to invest for their retirements because it will always be the government's job to take care of their pensions, despite the current system obviously being unsustainable. Like, you're not wrong. I just feel like we can be a bit more self-sufficient and practical here, but I digress. My main point is that, in France, servers already get paid a salary, and it's generally frowned upon to be demanding towards service staff. Like, you generally don't ask to customize your order, and you don't ask for add-ons throughout your meal. People just don't expect servers to do more than a bare minimum, so there's really no point in tipping, unless you really appreciated the service. The idea of having to pay more than what you were charged for is also insane. And so what happens is that a lot of French tourists hold on to this mindset even when they travel to countries that have a tipping culture, like the US, because they shouldn't have to tip. And again, you're not wrong. Like, I don't think tipping is a fair system either, but it's still one of the very few things that everyone in America takes very seriously. So it's just a bit hypocritical to not adapt to that, considering how unforgiving French people can be towards those who don't adapt to their culture. My take is that you should hold yourself to the same standards that you impose on everyone else, and this applies to more things than just tipping. But outside of this very specific situation, I don't think that French people are stingy at all. In my experience, it's very normal to treat your friends to a meal at a restaurant here, or make food for them without expecting anything in return. Most people won't hesitate to take time out of their day to help you out with anything you need, like letting you crash at their place, helping you move, driving you somewhere. Like, these are things that many friends have done for me many times. Within France, people from certain regions are known to be stingy, but I don't think that's anything significant. Relative to other countries like the Netherlands, French people, by and large, are very giving. So I just feel like it's a bit unfair to call them stingy just because they refuse to tip when traveling. Alright, so those were my takes on the most common negative stereotypes that I've heard about French people. I made this video because I sometimes still get funny looks from people that I meet on my travels, for example, when they find out that I chose to live in France and that I chose to be around French people. And I also come across posts on social media that dunk on French people quite often because of all the stuff that I just mentioned. All I wanted to do with this video was promote understanding, so hopefully I'm able to convince you to give the French the benefit of the doubt if you ever see them behaving in ways that you're not used to. And if you're French and you're watching this, just try to be a little bit more flexible and mindful, especially when you go abroad. I also do tutoring sessions for people who want to become better at spoken French or spoken English, and if you're interested in working with me, sign up for a free trial session with the link below. Let me know if you agreed or disagreed with whatever I said in the video. It's always a pleasure for me to read what you guys have to say, and if you want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to watch these videos next, and until next time, have a great rest of your day. Bye guys, love you.